Hello, in today's video we will be talking about strings. We will define strings in C#. We will talk also a little bit about string assignments and string concatenation. And to do this we will use the application that we have built in the previous video. Let's try it and try to remember what we did last time. So previously we had the user select one of the items presented to them through the picture. So they click on each of the picture and then the application displays the price. And see here how the price varies depending on the item that was selected by the user. Now instead of having the user enter or click on the item they want to use, we're going to have the user type in the text of the item they would like to buy. To do that, we're going to use what we call a text box. And a text box is another control that is available through the .NET framework in C#. So we'll add in a text box. We're going to name this text box Selected items text box. So what this text box would do is it will allow the user to enter some text. So far we have been able to output information to the user, but we're not really getting anything from the user. We're not entering any text input from the user. In this particular example, we're going to have the user enter the item that they would like to purchase. So that's going to be an input from the user. Let's try that. So now we have a text box and the user can actually enter information. Okay, so they can type in anything, milk, broccoli, etc. But right now the application does not really do anything with this text box. So let's see how we can modify that. In order to use the text that has been entered by the user, we're going to add a button that says buy now, or add to cart. So we just changed the name of the button control. Now we want to change the text on that control. So we can either have buy now or add to cart. Let's move our price right here. So now we have our button. Now instead of displaying the price, we're going to display the items that have been selected by the user. We're going to use the same label, but we're going to modify it. So we'll change the name of this label to say selected items label, and we're going to change the text of this label to say you have selected the following item. Now we're going to run that. So my display is correct. Now if I click on any of those pictures right here, I still see the price. So I need to delete this label somehow. So I go on my form, I select my label, and delete it. I only want to delete that label I don't need. Now what I want to do is to add in another label, but this time the label would say the item selected. We'll call it items label. And really, to begin with, we want the text on this label to be empty. So we will actually change the name of the label There we go. Let's save. Now what we really would like to do is when the user clicks on the Add to Cart button, whatever was entered in the text box, we want it to show up on here in the label right here, the items label that we just created. So let's try to do that. And to add in a method associated with this button, we just need to go to the control and double click on the button like this. Now we are on the Buy Now button click method, and what we would like to do is to get the text that we have received from the user in this text box. So this text box is called Selected Items text box. Let's copy that name. And what we want is the text that was entered in there. But what are we going to do with this text? Well, we're going to add it to this label that we have just created. So my label right here that I called items label. So I'll take that label and I need to assign a value to the text of that label. So this is what I'm doing. I'm taking the text that was entered in the selected items text box and I'm assigning that same exact text to my label. And you're thinking right now, how is that worthy? Well, we're gonna still modify this code a little bit. So in this step, what we want to do is just to copy and paste the content of the text box, and then we'll add some more code to this. And I have some errors. Let me see. It's looking for my price label, which is not there. So we'll go ahead and remove this code because we don't need it anymore. For now, we'll just comment it out. So we don't want to display the price of the items anymore. What we would like to display is the name of the item that has been entered by the user. Okay. So if the user enters broccoli and clicks on the Add to Cart button, well then I see here the word broccoli. Let's say the user enters milk, I see milk. So whatever I do enter, if I do enter anything, the code will blindly take that text that I entered here in the text box and copy it in my label. So for this example, we will also add in a thank you label. So if we go back to the form, we're just going to select label. Right here, we will call that thank you label. And in the background, in the code, we will assign the following text to that label. So we will just say thank you for your purchase. Let's try that. I have an error, and here I forgot to add in the semicolon. Let's try it now. Okay, so here we will just enter an item, add to cart. We show the item that has been selected, and then we say thank you for your purchase. Now where are we going with this? here, these are just examples to illustrate what a string is. Now you have seen two ways to input strings or to use strings in your code. One way is to have the user enter text through the text box, and this would be a string. And as you have, you might have noticed, a string is actually a set of characters. So any list of characters is referred to as string in C#. Another type of string, or another way you can use strings in C# is just by manually entering the text. So this here also is a set of characters, and this is also something that we can refer to as a string. So a string basically is just a set of characters, and it could be any alphanumerical characters, it could be any special character. As long as we have our characters in between quotes, we can use them and as a string. Okay, and also what we can have is an empty string. So for example, if right here in the beginning we can set our label we can set the text of our label to the empty string. You're going to save and start. So when we click on add to cart, at first the label is empty, and then we set it to thank you for your purchase. Now here we don't really see it very well, just because it happens so fast. When we click on the button, we just drag the text into the first label, and then this text shows up. Now if we do that on the load form, so when the form is loading, whenever the application starts and the form is loading, we want that text to be empty. So in the beginning, we want our thank you label not to say anything, and then after the user adds an item to the cart, we can say the thank you for your purchase. So again, let me go over that process again and show you the way I did it. We go to the designer. Yes. And you can double click on the form. When you double click on the form, it creates a method called form load. And what that method does, it creates some code for us that would execute whenever the form loads. And so that happens, that's the first thing that happens whenever the form loads and the application is starting. And right at that time, we want to set that label to the empty string. So we want our thank you label 1 to be empty whenever we start the form. Because see here, now our label says label 2, and this is not what we want showing up to begin with. We want this label to be empty, and then we want it to be set to say thank you for your purchase. Another way we could do that, you might argue, is to just go here and empty the text right here. And it is about the same thing. It's just a different way to change the text of our label. So now let's start our form. Let's save and start our application, and see here that the form loads and our label is now empty. Now we type in a text, we add to the cart. The text that we typed in here shows up in our label, and then we show the thank you for your purchase label. To sum up, we have different ways to use strings in C#. We can either enter a static string the way we did it here, and we assign this text to our label, so this is a string, or we can have an empty string the way we did it right here when we're loading the form, and the way to do that is just to have nothing in between quotes and have that being assigned as a value to a label text. Or we can use the input from the user and select the text that has been entered by a user as a string, and then assign it to a labels text. Okay, so now let's go back to our application and see how we can even modify it a little bit further. So let's start the application. Here, one more time, let's type in an item. Here we say thank you for your purchase. Now to make this application a little bit more personalized, what we can do is instead of having a generic label, we can add in the item that has been purchased to our thank you label. So this is how we can modify the code to do that. Let's go back to our method, the button click method. Instead of saying thank you for your purchase, we can say thank you for purchasing, and then we'll have a space. Now what we want to do here is we want to list the exact item that has been selected by the user, purchased by the user. So what we want to do is to add in some text right here. So let's give an example. Let's just say, or let's just assume that the user will select milk. Now what we will do, we will have thank you for your purchasing, and then we will also add in another string or attach this string that has the word milk in it to the previous string. And this is what we refer to in C# as concatenation, string concatenation. And string concatenation just refers to the simple fact of attaching two strings together. Let's save and try that and see how that's going to work. So we're assuming that the user will select milk. When they click on add cart, we have the item that's been displayed right here, and also our customized message that says thank you for purchasing milk. So it says the specific item that the user has selected. Now let's say the user selects something else. Now we click on add to cart. Now our string still says milk, which is wrong, and we need to go back and modify that. How can we do that? So instead of using this static string that we have typed in right here, what we can do is to add in the text that has been entered by the user in the text box. So what we can do is to copy this and paste it right here. What this statement or what this line of code would do is it will display this static message, thank you for purchasing, and then we'll have a space, and then we will add in another string to our previous string, and this time this is the string that has been entered by the user. Let's go back and test that. So let's say I selected broccoli, I click on add to cart, it says broccoli right there. Now let's say I picked milk, now it says milk. So whatever I type in, it customizes my message depending on the text that I have entered as a user. Okay? So now we have defined strings. We have defined different ways to assign strings in C#. So we can have static strings, we can have an empty string, or we can have a string that has been entered by the user in a text box. And we have also talked about concatenation. And when we talk about concatenation, it's just adding two strings together. Okay, and we could add in two different static strings or multiple static strings, or we can have a variable string that has been entered by the user with a static string. One last example to show further how we can modify this code to show concatenation is this way. So instead of having one string that says thank you for your purchase, we can have the word thank, we can have the space, we can have for, and then we can still add in space, and then purchasing, we can add in another space, then we can add selected items, text box, text. And if you look at these two lines of codes, they should generate the exact same output. So let's comment this out. So the code is not really looking at this statement anymore, but it's rather looking at this one. So let's try that and see if it's generating the exact same output. We'll enter milk, add to cart, and surely enough, it is the exact same string. All right. So in here, instead of having one full string or static string, we concatenated a whole bunch of strings. So we have the string thank, we had the space string, and then we just go like that to create a string by concatenating several strings together. And then we add in the text that was entered in the text box. Okay, and that would be the end of this video. I hope this has been helpful, and see you in the next video.